Greetings. It's October 2nd, 2018, and on October 25th, 2018, I'm taking a transatlantic cruise on the Queen Mary 2 from New York to Southampton, and I've decided to make this little video about my trip. Why would you want to watch my video when there are literally dozens of other videos on the internet on the exact same subject? Well, I'll tell you. It's because I'm searching. I'm searching for answers that aren't on any of those videos. Other videos will tell you what your room looks like, where you can eat on the ship, how big it is compared to the Titanic, the average flight speed of a swallow. I don't really intend to talk about any of those things. No, lift sucks. Of course, you already know that if you read the title to this video, so I'll just start. The first question I had was about pricing. So, I'm not an avid cruiser, but I have been on a few cruises. And one of the things that bothered me was, I took a 3-day cruise one time to the Bahamas. It was $250. I thought, hey, I'm local, no airfare? That sounds like a pretty good deal. We pulled into the parking lot and they immediately charged us $10 a day for parking. Cha-ching! Our $250 cruise is now $280, and we hadn't even gotten on the ship yet. Now, I've heard that Cunard isn't a normal cruise line, and this isn't an actual cruise ship. It's an ocean liner. So it was supposed to be different. The question is it? You see, despite being owned by Carnival, Cunard is a cruise line that's trying to harken back to the days of the 30s and 40s, the heady days of traveling via ocean liner. And they do so by maintaining a lot of the things that existed back then, like the lack of a computerization system, or allowing the lower classes to go anywhere near the upper classes. You can't really talk about pricing on Cunard without talking about accommodations. The two go hand in hand. You may know that there are 3 tiers of pricing, and in the first tier, I imagine a person would have to decide between taking a family of 4 on a 7-day cruise or buying a brand new Toyota Camry. I'm not in that class. I'm not even in the second class. And I'm not going to ask you if you've seen the movie Titanic. I can already tell from box office sales that you have. So I'll just remind you that in that movie, the third-class passengers rode on the bottom with the rats and the bilge. And they were even locked in so they wouldn't get in the way of the first-class passengers as they made their way to the lifeboats. That's the class I'm in, bilge class. Of course, Cunard doesn't call it that. Probably bad for sales. So here are the cruises for the inside cabin. You can see most of them are sold out, which makes sense. This cruise I chose is only a few days away now. There is one left in the inside for $699, so let's take a look at it. As you can see, this looks quite nice, and it should. It's a luxury ship, and as I understand, the rooms are substantially the way they are viewed here. Kind of small, but really, that shouldn't matter. My recommendation is that you take this room. If you're taking advantage of all the amenities that the ship has to offer, you're not going to spend a lot of time in your room anyway. You're going to sleep, you're going to eat, you're going to shower, and that sort of thing. If you don't take advantages of the amenities that are offered on the ship, then you're probably going to be pretty bored over 7 days. So my recommendation is take this room, get the low price, done. So naturally, that's not what I did. So why didn't I go for that option? Well, as it turns out, I have a bit of a phobia. If you've made it this far into the video, you may have guessed I probably have a lot of phobias. But the one I'm referring to specifically involves the need to see out. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a fear of fire or just needing to get out in the event of the ship sinking or something, but phobias don't make sense. That's why they're called phobias and not characteristics. Strangely, my wife shares this phobia, so I got the green light to look for an upgrade. Liking to save a little bit of money, like most people, I decided to just go for the cheapest balcony I could find. Here you can see $849. That's not too bad compared to the inside cabin price. So my reasoning was very similar to what I'm doing right now. I went in and clicked on that, and I decided to see what this looked like. And you can see that the cabin's a little bit different, the way it's shaped. It's got a nice little balcony out here with a couple of chairs. But before I clicked, I noticed something. Now, I'm from America, so I don't actually speak English, but I'm pretty sure I know what the word obstructed and view mean when they collide in a single phrase. On the other hand, maybe I don't. I mean, is that just like a pole in the middle there, or is it something bigger? What exactly does obstructed view mean? Well, I searched around this website quite a bit, and I had a bit of difficulty finding out what obstructed view means. Finally, I went to the internet in just general, and I found out. Allow me to show you what obstructed view means. Ta-da! There it is. That's an obstructed view. I guess that's a balcony, too. Let me go see what the ocean view looks like again. And there's the ocean view. Now, you can see it's got its porthole like I wanted, which theoretically would solve my phobia problem, but at the same time, it's kind of poorly located. I wake up before my wife, and I can imagine looking through the porthole like a dog out of a car window and accidentally stepping on her face, and that's not going to be good for anybody. Well, I think you can see where this is going. So finally, what I wound up with was what they call a sheltered view. It's a balcony with a hole. It's a second exit for my phobia. It was in my price range, so yeah, this is what I went for. Total cost, $1,666, including the extra fees they charge. Now you can see from this balcony that from the seated position, like the seats that they give you there on the balcony, you're actually only going to see sky. Same thing's going to apply if you're in the bed in the room. So it is actually quite sheltered. It's really kind of only an opening if you go right up to it to look out. Now, some people say that's a good thing because sometimes the weather is so bad you really can't use the balcony much anyway, and at least this provides you with some shelter. I have mixed feelings, but I was trying to get something that worked within my budget, and this is where I wound up. Or did I? As you might have imagined, there's more to selecting a room than just the price and the type of room that you want. There's the location on the ship. And now, there may be 3 pricing tiers, but if you look at this drawing of the upper decks, you can see the colors on the left-hand side here. Each one represents a price. So, like the shades of gray, there are 50 different prices. All right, before you count, I already did. There are only 30, but they do change with time, so there may in fact be more than 50. The point is, you need to figure out where you want to be. I highly recommend avoiding areas like stairwells, elevators. This is where people, when they're partying for the night, late at night, discuss where they're going to meet the next day and what happened during the day, and then it becomes a long, drawn-out conversation that you're going to be listening to through your door. Another concern about where to be on the ship involves motion sickness. Some people suffer from this, and I guess the idea is that the less motion, the better. I'm not sure that's actually true, but here's a little graphic as to how I explain where you want to be on the ship to make things better. This is the ship. This is the center of gravity of the ship. Don't forget there's a lot more ship below the waterline. This is my room on deck 11, and this is some poor sap's room in the front of the boat. Now, let's say we get some bad weather, and the ship begins to toss, like this. You can see the difference in locations between the red dots, the green dots, and the yellow dots. So clearly, the closer you are to the center of gravity, the less motion you have in your room, and the less motion sickness, theoretically. So you'd want to be low in the boat and toward the center. Of course, if we have waves this bad, then we might get into a little bit of trouble. If you want the right room for you, I suggest you look over those deck plans as if you're Sherlock Holmes. On the other hand, I don't know if it's going to make any difference. See, we booked early. And when you book early, you have a tendency to get some perks. One of the perks we got was we were upgraded. So, we were near our friends in the way that Paris is near London on a map of the world.
And I'd made sure that we weren't near staircases and elevators, and I made sure that it was the right price range, and I made sure of all those other things I told you about, and in the end they just went ahead and upgraded us. Now, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but was it really an upgrade? I had to look into it. So here's where we were on deck 6, and here's where we are on deck 11. We're moving up in the world, 5 decks in fact. And we are now near our friends in the way that Paris is to Moscow on a map of the world. But was it an upgrade? As you can see, we were near the dreaded stairwell I mentioned before. So I talked to my friend and she told me that the little line on this drawing is actually a wall separating the stairwell from the rooms, providing a bit of privacy. So that sounded pretty good, and I chose to believe that that was the case, especially when I saw what our room looked like. So here it is, and you can see that the balcony has improved quite a bit. There is clear glass now, so you can actually see out, and it's not sheltered at all. So whether or not that's an advantage, I guess we'll just have to wait and see after I'm on the cruise. So I'm just outside here, and I noticed that the buzzards are beginning to circle. I have to say I'm getting a little concerned. Anyway, in the last 11 minutes or so, I've been talking about pricing, and I'm still not done talking about pricing. I think I mentioned earlier that Lanyard has a missing or maybe antiquated computerization system. I'd like to touch on that now because it's based a little bit on pricing. It's not as if Lanyard doesn't have a website. They do, and there's actually quite a bit of good information on it. It's just that there are some issues with it. Let me explain. So here's what the Voyage Personalizer looks like, and as you can see on the left side here, they give you a number of things that you have to do before you can board the ship. I still have to download the tickets. They also have some other useful information here. You can see at the bottom that we're eating at 6 o'clock at night in the Britannia restaurant. And on the full itinerary view, you can see here is where they tell you that on day 1, you have smart attire. Day 2 is a gala evening, smart attire, gala evening, smart attire, gala evening, and so on. As I said, there's a lot of really good information on the website, and I highly encourage you to go through all of that. It's a lot to digest, but mixed in amongst the fluff is some really important stuff, which I'll highlight later in the video. But I found that the website is a bit glitchy. I had errors sometimes. One time it timed out on me 3 times, and when it does time out, you have to log in again and put in your booking number, and you have to agree to the terms and conditions each time. I also find that they want you to call them a lot of times, where you would kind of expect a button that says, hey, I'm diabetic. It says, call. Same thing with a few of the other things. Kind of odd in an era where they're trying to get you not to call them anymore, but to do everything through the web. Also, I found that sometimes it sends you to another website, and when you get done surfing there, a lot of times with the exact same information that's duplicated, you come back and you find that, once again, it's timed out. So all of these things are basically first world problems. Of course, it is a luxury cruise, so I think pretty much all of the problems are going to be first world. So what was it that led me to complain about their computerization system? That requires a story, of course. As I mentioned, I'm going on this trip with 2 other couples. One couple's immigrating to the United Kingdom, and she's a veterinarian, and they have a lot of animals. They're booking 3 dogs and 2 cats on the trip. So you may know that there's a kennel on board. What you may not know is, to get into those kennels, they had to reserve a year in advance, and the cost was pretty steep. With one of these, why would you ever talk to anyone in person? Anyway, she says that they reserved 5 lower and 2 upper kennels. They have 2 dogs that are very large. They're Great Pyrenees, so I think they got 2 kennels for each of those dogs for 4, then a normal kennel for the normal size dog, and then 2 upper kennels for the 2 cats. Total cost? Cha-ching! $6,600. That's $46,200 doggy dollars. What does all this have to do with an antiquated computer system? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, as I'm assuming is common when an entire year passes between booking a trip and taking the trip, one of the cats passed away, little Eowyn. So when my friend called Cunard to say that they wouldn't need one of the upper kennels because the cat had passed away, Cunard's response was, and I'm paraphrasing here, something along the lines of, "What kennels?" That's right, they'd lost the reservation. So how does this happen? Like us, they booked so early that they were upgraded, and when they were upgraded, the animals weren't. Which begs the question, if the animals' reservation is tied to the people's reservation, then shouldn't they have been upgraded at the same time? And if it's not tied to it, why was it affected at all? I mean, maybe they were hacked by the Russians. I don't know. All I know is that it gives you the impression that Cunard is maybe just writing these things down on a little sheet of paper and then pinning it to a board, and somebody opened the door and it fluttered into the trash. Who knows? The important part is, the reservation was lost. It took many calls from my friend to Cunard, whom she said were very friendly, but apparently she could only ever get any actual response from somebody other than the kennel master. In the end, they found a place for the 3 dogs, but as of this time, the cat, still up in the air. Let's hope it lands on its feet. So there's an obvious lesson you can learn from all of this, which is, obviously, don't have cats as pets. Remember the $250 cruise I took for $500? Well, there'll be a second part to this video, and I'll explain more about that after the cruise. But I did do a little preliminary study on their website, and I found that there are many things that you can spend money on that are upgrades or in addition to what you would spend on a cruise. They have a laundry area, for instance, and if you don't want to do your own laundry, then you can have them do the laundry for a slight upcharge. And then the one that puzzles me the most is that you can actually eat at a different restaurant. Now, when it comes to cruising, food is really important. I mean, if you're going to trap somebody on a ship for 7 days with cafeteria-style food, I imagine you wouldn't get a lot of repeat business. So with the food already being pretty good, and you can literally, and I'm using the word correctly this time, eat your way from New York to England on this ship, I always find it a little bit interesting that somebody would actually pay an additional fee to eat at an even better restaurant. And from what I understand, the food is substantially the same. That charge is $50 per person if you're one of those people. Another thing you can spend money on is the spa, and there's a long list of things in the spa that you can spend money on. I went there and looked, and you can actually wrap yourself in seaweed or put those little cucumbery things on your eye holes. You can have skin treatments, and yeah, they even give massages. It's really important that you note, though, that there is a bit of an extra charge for that. So I looked. I was looking for a massage for my wife, and it was about $150. I checked locally here, and the same massage was worth about $60. So I thought, do I do it or not? It'd be great to get the ball and chain out of my hair for a day.
Hey, what?
Uh-oh. I have a statement to read. It is never all right to refer to your wife as a ball and chain. I apologize unreservedly, and it will never ever happen again. So apparently every day in your cabin you receive a little sheet of paper that functions as a bit of a ship's newspaper. And there's a long list of things on it that are happening on the ship that day. And if you pay very careful attention to it, I happen to have a copy right here, it will give you the option for a heavily discounted massage. So I might be able to get my wife the massage that I wanted to get her by being very careful and looking every day and making sure that maybe one of those coupons might apply. Of course, it'll probably be an off hour, like 2 o'clock in the morning or during dinner or something, but hey, there's a little top tip for you. Another question I had was about these formal nights. It seems that after 6 o'clock, you're supposed to wear what they call smart attire. And then on every other night, there's a gala event. In these gala events, you're supposed to wear literally black tie, like a tuxedo or something. I don't actually own a tuxedo, but they say that black tie optional is okay, meaning a black suit, a dark tie, a white shirt. It's very restrictive, if you say. But I was curious. Where can you go if you don't want to do that? And if you want to go there, but you have to pass through an area where you're supposed to be dressed, do they have, like, I don't know, some kind of formal wear police? It's getting a clearer picture the more I look online. I found a list of places you go that require the formal wear, and other places you go where it's not required. But it's still just a little bit confusing to me. So that's something I plan on telling you about when I get back from the trip. So there are many items that they recommend that you bring on the ship, both from the little pamphlet that they send you and some online sources. I've laid out a few of them here on the bed for you. I'll go over them right now. So, for instance, this lanyard here is handy to have because they give you an ID on board that you pretty much pay everything with. So it's kind of a handy way to keep it if you're into that sort of thing. The hanger up there has some grips on it. Apparently the hangers that they provide in the cabin are slippery and your pants will fall off. An over the door hanger, which is one of those things that you put shoes in. You hang it on your door and it's got a bunch of pockets on it, so it's handy with a room that doesn't have a lot of space in it to store some things. I don't actually have one of those, so I included these action figures instead. Strong magnets. Apparently a couple of the walls in the cabin are metal and you can attach a strong magnet, probably something like that, but probably with a hook or something. The most important one, I think, is the power strip. The power strip is important because in the room they only give you one plug. There is apparently a shaver plug in the bathroom, but I don't think it's supposed to be used for sort of anything but shavers. So one plug, I think it's two plugs, but it's one outlet. There's a US one and a European one. So you could also bring a transformer for the European plug. This is not the English one, but I did want to point out to those of you who don't know, something like this is actually an adapter. This will adapt your American stuff to the European version of whatever you've got on there and allow you to destroy your equipment. This is a transformer. That actually transforms 220 volts down to 110 volts that you can use without destroying your stuff. So don't get those two things confused. Just because it fits in the plug doesn't mean it won't be blown up. A highlighter. This is handy because every day they slide a little pamphlet under your door of the day's events. I'll go over that later, but that'll allow you to highlight those items that you want to see. Post-it notes, in case you want to leave a little note for the hired help. Duct tape. I don't like duct tape. It's too messy, so I've got some painter's tape there. Now, oddly, what this is supposed to be used for is, apparently if you have a balcony room, the wind can cause a whistling noise that might keep you awake at night, and you can use this to tape up the seams. At least that's what I was told. Wrinkle release, which isn't here. Also, some laundry detergent, and if you want to do any laundry on board, I don't know why anybody would want to do laundry on board. I mean, you're on vacation. But, you know, if you need a pack light. I didn't have any of that either, so I included some spray and wash, which is just a stain remover. Maybe not, also not a bad idea. Another one I think is very important is the USB plug. This only has 3 on it. I think I have one that has more, but considering we live in a modern era, you're going to have a lot of devices like maybe a Kindle, and of course I take photos with my phone even if I don't use it as a phone over there, and you need to charge all those things, so make sure you bring one of those with you. That's really important. Clothespins, again, if you have a room with an opening window or balcony, the curtains might not stay closed and keep you awake apparently. I don't have that problem, but that's an idea. Also, if you drink decaffeinated tea or coffee, you might bring a little bit with you in case it's not really available. Apparently there's a tea and coffee maker right in the room. You can always order, 24-hour room service or something if you really need a decaf. I'm sure they can accommodate you. Dramamine, that's a big one if you suffer from the Motion sickness that I mentioned before, obviously that would be important to bring. Unfortunately, they don't allow weapons, so they're no fun. And of course, a really important one is the passport. And I think I'll just use that as a segue for the next segment. Passport. Very important to note on this. You will not be allowed on the ship if your passport expires with less than 6 months left on it after your return to your native country, America or India. Those are the only two choices. I don't know if that's true or why they need a whole 6 months, but the fact is, I don't think that is a Cunard thing. I think that's a British thing. So I would definitely make sure that the passport has excess time on it, or else if you're in a hurry, send it off and have that quick 3-day thing that they do, you pay extra for or whatever. But that's really important. I also forgot to mention that on the power strip, it's not allowed to have a surge protector. Apparently it messes with their electrical system. At first I couldn't see any way that was going to happen. It's kind of just usually a capacitor or something in there. Turns out that is a problem. So they may not let you take that on the ship. So make sure you find one that doesn't have a surge protector on it. And I kind of like these, generally speaking, just because each item doesn't interfere with the other one. You know, you can like plug pretty much anything in here if it's one of those big wall wart things. So a couple of important things to note. I also had down here the Ziplocs. They're just always handy to have, and as it turns out, they're actually kind of hard to come by in Europe. So if you have a friend that lives there, maybe bring a box and leave it with them as a gift. I'm probably not going to bring most of the stuff I told you about, but it was on the list, and it can be helpful if you're the kind of person who wants to bring a action figure. I was asked by Cunard to print my e-ticket. It said at the top of the website where you print it, and I quote, "This page is printer friendly, so it will not use excess ink or paper." Here's my ticket. 9 pages for one. And that didn't even include the boarding thingies you put on your luggage. Printer friendly. Well, I have the unusual pleasure of taking this cruise over Halloween. I thought, great, my favorite holiday. What costume do I get to wear? Well, as it turns out, there's a Roaring Twenties theme going on the night before Halloween, but on the calendar, it doesn't show anything for Halloween. Maybe the British don't celebrate Halloween. I thought that was one of those holidays that the Americans exported. But maybe not. I suppose you could just walk around on the ship on the 31st in a costume and the British would look at you strange and the Americans wouldn't, but I probably won't do anything then. I've got a lot of stuff to pack, so I will do the Roaring Twenties thing, though, the night before, and I'll report back to you as to what exactly Halloween's like on the ship. One of the perks you get for booking early is free gratuities. So if you're not familiar with the practice, cruise lines will often add a gratuity to your bill to help pay the salaries of the employees instead of them doing it. I don't agree with tipping in general if you look where it started from, but this is a system we have in place, and if I don't, then I'm only going to be hurting the people who are cleaning my toilets and serving me my food, and they're the last people that I want to affect that way, especially considering that many of them do it with a big smile and a lot of enthusiasm. Not an easy thing to do. Whatever your philosophical bent is, because it's a gratuity, you can't have it removed. You'd have to go to the purser's desk, which is in the main area there of the ship. And they don't make it easy, however, because it's put on a daily basis. So you'd either have to go down every day or go down at the end of the trip when everybody else is probably going to be doing that. If you want to have it removed so that you could then tip individually, that's laudable. It would kind of neglect the people who work behind the scenes to help you and don't have a chance to have that personal interaction and bump their tip up. So whatever your philosophy is, the charge is $11.50 a day for bilge class and $13.50 a day for the Queen's Grill. Now, because we're getting free gratuities, it does leave me with a question. Is the cruise line actually going to pay the gratuity on my behalf, or are they just not going to pay it at all? I don't think I'm ever going to get an answer to that question. Welcome to the second part of the video. You finally made it. Don't you hate long videos? I do. So, I'm already back, and I've been on the cruise, and I have a lot of information for you because I don't need it anymore. I've already been on the cruise. I started with pricing, so I might as well go ahead and just start there again. I told you that I spent about $1,666 per person for our tickets. Combined, we spent about $150 more. And that was spent in primarily two different places. One was on gratuities. We gave an extra gratuity to the guy who cleaned our room, and then one to the waiters who put up with all my gluten-free shenanigans. And on that note, I talked to the purser's office and asked them point blank, if we have gratuities included, does Cunard pay the employees that gratuity? And they, of course, said yes, and I have no way of verifying if that's true. And if I asked the guys in the hall, hey, did you get a gratuity? They're never going to know, right? Because they don't know who went down and cut out a gratuity and who added one. So there's really no way to verify. Like I said, I'm never going to know that answer. So the other place that we spent money was in the ship stores. And good information there, good news there. The prices weren't too bad. So they did have jewelry stores and they did have artwork, and that was way out of my price range. But I managed to forget my belt. So I brought suspenders for the 20s night, the roaring 20s night, and but I totally forgot a belt. So I went down to the ship store and found some belts, and strangely, since they require a lot of formal wear, you would have thought they had some formal belts, but they're all very casual. But they were about $30, which is about what they cost down the street, maybe even a little bit less. So that's kind of a good thing, right? I didn't actually wind up buying one. I just kind of went through the whole thing wearing suspenders. I didn't want one of the casual belts, but they did seem to be pretty good quality. They were made by Fossil, and it's a company that makes stuff I kind of like. They seem pretty good. Also, I did buy a pair of readers, and they were $15, and my wife tells me that's roughly what they cost down the street as well. So some of the prices on the ship aren't too bad. That was it. But, very important to note, I drink very little, and my wife doesn't drink at all, and I just refrained. I'm assuming that if anybody's going to spend extra money on the cruise, that it's going to be an alcohol. On our first night, one of the people at the table got a glass of wine, and it was $9. So actually, this is something I've never really understood. If you're a drinker, I mean, like I said, I do drink a little bit, but when I go to a bar, I'm like, I don't know how anybody can afford to go to a bar and get drunk because everything's $10 for this drink or $6 for that drink. I mean, you can buy a whole bottle and take it home for way less. So it seems like a pretty expensive proposition. But like I said, I don't drink very much. So my guess is that's where you would spend a lot of money. Now there is more to say about the pricing category. There's a lot to say about that, but that's the bottom line, and I'll get to that. I'll get to the other stuff right now. So I picked up these pamphlets near the gym where it says here you can get for $10 a day all the soft drinks you want, $15 a day for all of these specialty hot drinks, and then this one which has all of those things listed. It turns out for $69 a day you can even get beer, wine, and some spirit selections. Interestingly, only up to $11. Beyond that, you get a bit of a discount for $69 per day, and then a special soft drink plan which includes mocktails, which are basically virgin or non-alcoholic cocktails. So yeah, even in their offers they have some limitations that require a little extra purchase on board. So I think this is kind of typical for all cruise lines. I find it kind of annoying, especially when soft drinks are so, inexpensive. I can only assume that people just can't stay away from soft drinks on a 7-day cruise, and this winds up being a pretty big profit center for them. Otherwise, I don't know why they would do that. I mean, when you're at dinner, you can order, 2 steaks instead of 1, and the last time I checked, steak is way more expensive than soft drinks, but they must know what they're doing. Remember, I wanted to get a massage for my wife. The discounts never really materialized, or rather they did materialize, but only for the big packages that already cost $250, and they would discount them to maybe $169 or something like that, but they never really discounted just a single massage for a day. Okay, it is now December 10. I missed a bit of stuff during the Thanksgiving holidays. It's getting close to winter, and here in Florida it's gotten quite cold. I actually had to put on my long shorts. If this keeps up, I'm going to have to put on some jeans. Anyway, I thought I should clear the air a little bit. I want to make sure everybody understands that at no point was I told that this cruise is all-inclusive, nor was I actually told by anybody or read anywhere that Cunard was not a normal cruise line. I did see all over the place that the Queen Mary 2 is not a normal cruise ship, and I think I might have inferred it from that point. That said, I want to conclude this whole pricing thing just by saying that generally speaking, it was pretty much like any other cruise. You're going to have to pay extra for a lot of things. I felt that generally speaking, there were probably a few more things you had to pay extra for on Cunard than on other cruises I'd been on, but more or less on par. One I did find a little bit strange. So for instance, there's a coffee pot that you can make tea in your room. If you go to breakfast, you can get free tea there. If you go to the buffet, there's you can have 5 or 10 cups of tea for free. If you go to dinner, of course, you can get a cup of tea for free as well. But when I went to the pub with my friends to eat, and they didn't really have anything gluten-free for me, I decided, well, I'll just have a cup of tea while they eat, and I'll take care of myself later. And the tea was $3.50. So there's free tea everywhere but there, and I don't really understand that. It was the same thing with the menu that you would get in the room for room service. There were prices everywhere for all kinds of things that you'd think would just be included. And they are, if you order like the breakfast meal, then you get tea included. But if you just call down for tea, there's a charge. I thought that was kind of odd. It seems like if tea's free, it's free, right? So other than that, though, I would say it was pretty normal. And so I'm done with the whole pricing thing. It's cruise, very much like a cruise. It differentiates itself in, I'd say, in a couple of different ways. One is obviously ship, and the other is the whole class thing with the Queen's Grill and the bilge class and stuff. That's really not to be found, I don't think, on any other cruise line. For sure they have first class, but the whole segregating them that way, that's a little bit different, I would say. So enough about pricing. I wanted to talk about a couple of other little things. So as far as what to bring with you, yes. And they don't seem to check whether or not it has a surge protector on it. No, the hangers work just fine. They have clips on them. No, pens work just fine. No, I don't do laundry on vacation. I'd rather just smell bad. But if you do, fine. Although stain remover might be good if you're a messy person. No, although again, if you get bothered by light coming in the window, I suppose it might be helpful. We were able to close our curtains. USB, obviously. Lanyard. No. Put it in your pocket. You don't have a wallet after all. Tape. No. Well, maybe. I mean, it's always good to have some of this if you have room in your suitcase for a lot of different reasons. Our door didn't whistle. I'll show you a little piece I did on that on the ship. But our friend's door was completely different. Ours operated very nicely, and theirs was like, it took like the Hulk to open this thing. So if it's maybe gonna bother you if it whistles or something, sure, bring it along. Magnet for the walls? Yeah, actually pretty handy. A lot of the walls are magnetic, and if you got a hook that you can use a magnet on, then you can hang a lot of stuff on there. I'll show you that as well. Action figures, of course. But I wanted to add a few things to the list of my own. Alcohol, or maybe not alcohol. We have some wipes that we use. It's good for when you travel to hotels as well. If you're a germaphobe, you can wipe off the remote controls and light switches and things like that. Help keep you from getting sick. This is a must. This is a shim, but something like this, and I can't tell you how long to make it because I didn't measure it, but basically it's a doorstop. That was the one thing that we really wish we had. The doors close pretty strongly. If you bring a wedge that you stick under the door, the doors are a little bit high when they open into the room, so it may not work. It kind of depends on how tall it is. The guys that clean the rooms that want to leave them open use something like this, and they had to cut off a piece so that this part was exactly the right length, and they could stick it up into the top where the hydraulic door swinger thingy is. And I would recommend bringing something like that and then figuring out a way to hack it out with maybe a knife on the ship or something like that. The other is personal of mine. This would be vanilla syrup. So I like a vanilla cappuccino after dinner, and the cappuccino was a go, but the vanilla was a no-go. So if you bring a little supply of your own, then you're good to go. That's it. Here's a picture of the magnets on the wall. And a clip of the balcony door I promised you. Okay, so here's a story about the need for the tape and the whistling windows. On this balcony, if you go to open the door and you get to the point where you're about to open it, you can hear it. Next is the little piece of wood that they used as a doorstop. I'll grab it from here.
That's a good idea.
This piece of wood holds the door open. Next up is the motion of the ship. So remember that little graphic I did to show you how you could keep from getting seasick by choosing a room that was near the center of gravity of the ship? Yeah, that's just not true. It's more like this. Yeah, my wife and I both agreed that there was no real difference between being on deck 11 or being on deck 2. If the ship was moving, it was moving, and it moved essentially all of the time. When the seas were calm, there was always a very steady, sort of slow motion. And if, it wasn't a lot, so it didn't bother me. Honestly, none of it bothered me, of course, but I don't know how much motion it takes to make a person ill. If you're in a small boat, if you had been on those seas, you'd have been tossed around big time, and on the ship, it wasn't really very noticeable. I imagine when it's at its calmest, you could probably build a card house, but still a little bit of motion. At its worst, it was definitely rocking and rolling a little bit. When this happened, the stabilizers were used. The stabilizers don't come for free. So while it must have controlled the motion of the ship to a certain extent, it also brought about its own problems. First of all, there was a fair amount of noise depending on where you're located on the ship. So we had a constant noise in our cabin. I'm not really sure what it was. It was the stabilizers or maybe the air conditioner or something.
And it was really low level. It didn't bother me very much, but I did notice it when it stopped. Then I was like, oh, suddenly this is a lot quieter. It's kind of nice. But there was a definite vibration created whenever the stabilizers were going full tilt. It was strong enough to keep my wife awake at night. Didn't keep me awake at night, but at its worst, it was pretty bad. Take a look at this piece of video.
See my bathing suit moving around? That's the vibration I'm talking about.
So if you're old like me and you've lived in America for a long time, you might remember something called the magic fingers. Motel rooms used to have beds that would vibrate if you put a coin in them, and that's exactly what it reminded me of. The video you just saw there might have actually kept me awake at night as well. It was that bad. I'm not sure it got that bad at night, but clearly it was bad enough to bother my wife. It might bother you.
I'd like to talk about the kennels now. It's an important subject to a lot of people, and I think I have a lot to add to that now. But I need to preface the conversation by stating in the strongest of terms that my friends feel that the kennel masters aboard the QM2 were very caring and provided excellent service, and they were very happy with their performance. As an outsider, however, I do need to point out a few things. But first of all, I just wanted to make sure, and I wrote this down to make sure I didn't get it wrong. I mentioned earlier that if you want to bring your animals aboard the QM2, you need to apply very early in the process. As I said, they made the reservations a year in advance, but there's a lot more that has to happen before then. You can't just show up with your dogs on a leash. So I was told that the pets have to be chipped. Rabies shots have to take place after chipping, but at least 29 days before the trip. You need an EU health certificate within 10 days of travel, only available from a USDA accredited veterinarian and mailed to one of 6 USD locations. It must be overnighted, and you bring them with you with an official seal. They must have a tapeworm treatment performed by a vet within 2 to 5 days of travel. So that's a lot of stuff to handle before bringing your pets aboard, and so it's important that you know these things. In addition, you don't need to bring pet food, or maybe you do, and that's where the story comes in. So what happens is you inform the kennel masters of what food your pets require. They go out and purchase it and then provide it aboard. They are also willing to accept some special requests. In the case of my friend's dogs, they requested some chicken and I want to say carrots, but I don't remember what the other thing was. It sounds kind of odd for dogs, so it must have been something else. And they were happy to do that, which is nice. But I also mentioned that there was an antiquated computer system earlier, remember? The missing cat? Well, they did find a place for the cat, so that wasn't an issue. However, when we were boarding the ship, and I'll explain that a little bit later because it leads into something else, we met a woman and her husband, very nice people, and they had 7 cats. Yeah, that's $13,000 in cats. Well, apparently, somehow they bought the wrong cat food. And worse than that, they bought kitten food, and I don't really know a lot about this subject, so I'm told that kitten food really isn't good for cats, and of course cats are kind of finicky, and so they actually had one cat that sort of had to be force-fed on the way over, and they were able to borrow cat food from another passenger who used the same cat food. So whether you want to trust whether or not they'll get the right cat food for the full 7 days or bring your own is up to you, but it's important to note that cat food's not allowed into the UK. Even if it's sealed, it has to be discarded before you get there. So if you want to bring your own food just to be on the safe side, you might want to make sure you bring only the amount that you need. Now, on the cruise, one of the dogs, I mentioned that they had 2 Great Pyrenees, some kind of a mangy mutt, and the cat. One of the Great Pyrenees got sick in a pretty serious way. It had bloody diarrhea. I mentioned that my friend is a veterinarian, and so she wound up going down to the medical center to get some Imodium, and it was like $80, and I think she did that twice. If I understand this correctly, I believe that she thinks it was completely stress related. But I did mention that they requested that the dogs have a little bit of chicken added to their diets, and when she went down there, she found that there was actually no refrigeration in the area, so the chicken may have been sitting out a little too long or something. She doesn't think that this had any effect whatsoever on the condition of the dog, so it's important to note that. But it's also important to note that if you want to have anything added to the diet, you may need to keep close tabs on that. So later, one of the other dogs, the other Great Pyrenees, also started experiencing a little bit of diarrhea. So it's just something that can happen when animals are put under a lot of stress. So if you're considering bringing your animals on a cruise like this, make sure that you're fully aware of all the ramifications. So that was not the entire experience with the kennels. There were 2 other issues. One was boarding and disembarking from the ship, and the other was us, the travel companions. By that, what I mean is we were not allowed to see the dogs. So I'll show you some video here in a minute of us getting on board, what the kennels look like. I was able to shoot video then. We were escorted with our friends onto the ship separately from everybody else. And so, of course, at that time I was able to look around and talk to them, and I think I even sat through a little bit of the sort of intro that they had with all of the pet owners. But from that point on, I and my wife were expressly forbidden any, I don't want to say any contact with animals because we could reach over the fence, but we weren't allowed into that area. Only owners are allowed in that area. It doesn't matter if the people have permission from the owners to come, or if you're traveling companions, none of that matters. You're not allowed there. Now you might think, who cares? You don't have a pet, you don't need to be in there. But with the dogs being sick, our friends were spending more time with them to nurse them back to health and make them feel more comfortable, and that meant we were separated. So we wanted to see the dogs too. I've known the dogs for a long time, and I like dogs, and so we would go up periodically and just sort of reach over the fence and pet the dogs and say hello. It might be an issue if you have traveling companions, so I just wanted to mention it. The other issue was with the boarding and disembarkation, and I'll explain that next. So if you are boarding with some friends who have animals, you are boarded separately from the other passengers, and I'll show you a little bit of the video I shot. This is the area where the dogs were. We just kind of were in one corner of this big room, and you can see as I pan around here, there's a line of people waiting to go to each counter to sort of get signed in. And you can see there's a lot of open space, just one big building, but that space was completely full when we first got there. My friends had an awful lot of baggage since they were immigrating, I mentioned before, and so we took several trips from the hotel to the terminal, moving animals and moving luggage and that sort of thing. And so that line, when we first got there, was way out the door, and it was just packed with people. But by the time we got there, what you saw just then was all that was left. And it took a while for the kennel masters to come down and take us away. I think they obviously did it in shifts, because when we got there were a number of owners and animals already there. So that entire line was gone, and we were almost the last ones to get on the ship, it felt like. And you can see here how we're basically moving through the areas of the ship, and mostly being kept away from other people, which kind of makes sense. They probably they want to try to avoid any animals attacking people or something like that, I imagine. So and as promised, here's the kennels and what they look like, and all the animals are stressed. I noticed that when I was there and looking at some of the other animals, they were shaking, and it's completely understandable. And I imagine this is what happens when you take them to a kennel, on land as well, right? They're being separated and that sort of thing. But as you can see, the facilities are pretty good, and the kennel masters were really, really friendly, and yeah, it was, I think, about as good as you can get. Disembarking, however, was a little bit of a different story. So, as I said, we weren't allowed to be in the same area as the animals and the owners. And even though we're getting off the ship at this point, we basically we're on one side of the fence, and our friends were on the other side of the fence. And we were waiting to leave with them. Now, we did have the option of just getting off the ship with everyone else. And so we were told that the people with animals would actually get off the ship prior to other passengers. But when we got there at the appointed time, they weren't really ready to go. I'm not sure what the holdup was. And the kennel master said at one point, we just kind of hung around, and he said at one point that it was going to be at least a half an hour because he needed to go down and talk to somebody or something. I don't know the exact situation. So when we heard that, my wife and I decided, well, we don't know when we're going to get to eat again, so we're going to go down, grab a quick bite, and bring something back to our friends. So we left, and when we came back, right on the exact half-hour mark, he said at least, so we figured half an hour, we'll still have another 5 or 10 minutes or whatever it takes to get things done. But when we got back, my friend was sitting alone waiting for us. Apparently, literally moments after he said that, and we went down to the buffet, he said, "Okay, we're ready to go," and they all left. So, mistakes happen. I don't blame him, but it was a little annoying. I mean, we wouldn't have gone down had we known it was going to take some time, and if we had been together in the first place. So, maybe you disembark on your own and meet up with your friends afterward. I don't really know what the answer is there, but I'm just trying to tell you from my point of view that experience.
Okay, a couple of other things that I wanted to mention. One was kind of, I don't want this video to sound like I'm just only complaining about Cunard, because I'm not. I really do enjoy quite a bit just being on a ship. It's a lot of fun, and I will show you some of the things I really enjoy the most about the cruise later, but they're just I guess I find them most informative because they're sort of not what I had expected, and often when it's something you're not expecting, it's maybe not something as good as you'd hoped. So take it all with a grain of salt, and a lot of these things won't bother other people anyway. But I just wanted to mention that on day one, when we got on the ship, one of the things that I really wanted to do was go underneath the Verrazano Bridge. I think it's really cool to see how the ship sort of barely fits under there, and that's really awesome. And I don't know if it's just this cruise or generally the cruises, but in this particular one, we had a little rendezvous, as they say, with the HMS Queen Elizabeth, which is they said was the newest and largest aircraft carrier, I guess, in the British fleet, which interestingly enough, it was much smaller than the cruise ship. I always picture aircraft carriers as being huge, but we were actually kind of looking down on it. But they stopped and then sort of pivoted about the center of the ship 360 degrees so that everybody could get a good look at it and take photos and such. And of course, the beautiful view of New York City. But this took a long time, and leaving at 5, what happened was we wound up getting downstairs to dinner at about 7, which is a full hour after our appointed time. And they even said that they, in the documentation, that they wouldn't feed people after 6:30. And they did, which was really nice of them. And maybe that's one of the reasons why the service seemed a little not quite super. They may have been a little annoyed with us for getting there, and that's totally, well, not totally our fault, right? Because they schedule things during meals. Okay, so here we go. I finally got the actual little newspaper they send you with a list of events, and I'm just going to try and quickly read off a few of these to you. I don't want to bore you too long. This video is already much longer than I'd expected. 6 a.m. Television show about the ship and a movie, Life of the Party. 8:30 Catholic Mass. 9 o'clock Christian Fellowship Gathering unhosted. So in other words, hey, if you're Christian, you want to gather, do it here at this time. Foil fencing. That sounds pretty cool. As it turns out, I just happened to already do that. Not anymore, but it certainly wouldn't be a beginner. Let's see. Social paddle tennis unhosted. In other words, there's a ping pong table, and you should use it at 9:30. Queen Mary 2 ship tour. I like this one. Come and join the entertainment staff for a tour of Queen Mary 2's public areas. So you could just go there by yourself, couldn't you? Well, maybe you could attend and find out something you might miss. Beginner's bridge lessons. These all happen between 6 a.m. and 9:30 a.m., which incidentally is when breakfast is served. So again, they're kind of scheduling things like, I don't know, fencing I'm either going to be eating, I'm going to skip breakfast in order to do it, or I will have just eaten, in which case I'm not sure I want to go fencing. I'll let you make your own decisions on that. Insights lecture. The Georgians, polite and not so polite society in 18th century England. Could be interesting. Personally, I'd rather hear a topic more along the lines of how many knifings there were in 18th century England. That might be a little more interesting for me, but you know, your own. There is a Bago tournament. I don't know what Bago is. Or maybe it's Bago, like bags. Maybe they throw them through those holes, which I thought was called something else. Maybe I have to go and find out. Watercolor art class, $35 for the watercolors. Social target golf, unhosted. Once again, if you guys want to do target golf, whatever that is, you may meet and do it, and I suggest you do it at 10. Complimentary gaming lessons. Well, we know what that's going for. Intermediate bridge lessons. Solo travelers coffee morning. Line dancing. Celebrity lecture. The British monarchy yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Well, that's very important. Probably great if you're British, not so much if you're an American. Robert Coin Seminar. It's basically QVC. Look, here's a bunch of jewelry. Oh, and by the way, you can actually buy it when we're done. Table tennis tournament. Well, that's better. Killer darts. Now, this one sounds interesting to me because I don't know what that means. I'm assuming it's a dart tournament, but I envision in my mind two guys facing off like a duel, trying to kill each other with darts. Now that I would watch. I'm guessing it's going to be a little less lethal, though. There is a trivia contest at 10:30 in the morning. Now, I get up at 6:30, 7:30, depends on how well I'm sleeping, but I don't wake up until about noon, so if I'm going to be in a trivia contest, I'm going to be next to useless at 10:30 in the morning. Face it, I'm going to be next to useless at any time of the day when it comes to trivia. So I don't want to go through the entire schedule here for you, but I did want to point out a couple of interesting ones. One of them in particular is, where was it? It's something like quaint. Hang on, let me go find it.
The word he was looking for was quoits, Quoits. I had to look it up. It's not part of my active vocabulary. As it turns out, it's when you take one of those rings and try and throw it on the peg like you do at a carnival, kind of like a different version of horseshoes. Another activity that was going on was called hoopla. I had to look that one up as well. I never did find out what that was. A couple of definitions I found clearly weren't what they were doing on the ship, but whatever it was, there was a whole lot of hoopla going on down there. So a big point that I'd like to make regarding the schedule is that a number of the things that were on the schedule, in my opinion, weren't actual activities.
the art one, the jewelry one, the gaming, learning introduction gaming to gaming they're all just basically sales pitches for spending money on the ship. Some of them were just announcements. Some of them were recurring that you wouldn't do over again. The foil introduction to foil was, to me, I think the same class every night. I don't know. I didn't do it, but it was listed the same way every day. So I guess my point is there were a lot of things listed in there, and I think only a subset were things that you'd be interested to do. And that's fine. I mean, there were still a lot. There were definitely things you could find that interest yourself. But the big problem I had, and I did a piece on the ship, but it came out too long, so I'm just going to try and nutshell it here, is that they often required you to do things in advance. So, for instance, I may have mentioned I have celiac, which means that I'm one of those annoying people who always asks whether something is gluten-free. It's kind of important, unfortunately, so I had to make sure I monitored everything that I ate. And what they did was they gave me a menu the night before, in the menu that I could fill out and request 24 hours in advance what I wanted to eat in the dining room that night. And the fact was, 24 hours in advance, I didn't even know if I was going to be eating in the restaurant that night. So because they set that system up, I would just request what I wanted and then not show up if I didn't want to. I don't know what else to do, really. Also, the Planetarium was a big disappointment. The Planetarium itself was pretty cool. It was a small subset of the theater that you could go sit in, and the presentation we saw was okay. It was a short 30-minute thing. You get in, you get out, and you watch all in 30 minutes, which is pretty good since the movie itself was about 25 minutes. But you have to go down, I think it was 9 o'clock in the morning, to get tickets for the 1:30, 2:30, 1:32, 2:30, I think about 4 or 5 showings a day. And I wasn't always up at 9 o'clock, which means then you have to go to the theater and hope somebody doesn't show up or that there's some space left over. I'll show you a picture of the line that we waited in to get those tickets, like while I'm talking right now. The line was long, but it moved really quick. I mean, you basically walked up and said, hey, I want 2 for 2:30. They give you 2 and you walk away. So it went very quickly. But I was still sleeping at 9, and so I actually missed a couple of planetarium exhibits because you had to think in advance and wake up in advance, and my wife and I are much more spontaneous than that when we're on vacation. And that was a bit of a disappointment to me. I can't blame anybody for that. It's just my own opinion. So another thing I wanted to mention about that, and I almost forgot, it's really important that why do you have to wait in line at 9 o'clock in the morning for a 1:30 show, which, by the way, you'll wait in line for at 1:30 as well. It's the year 2018. I mean, even hotel rooms, they have control on the television where you can do things, you can check out and that sort of thing. So they wouldn't even really have to install new infrastructure for you to make reservations like this in your room. And even better, check to see if there's availability then. So why have to get a little physical ticket and stand in a line and then go and stand in line again later? I don't really understand. So regarding the gluten-free food, here's a picture of the buffet. You can see that there is a pretty big selection. It all looks very tasty. Here is a video of the gluten-free section. So I don't expect people to accommodate me, so I find it very nice that they had a section at all. However, it was a little unusual for a cruise line when I walked up and asked people, where can I find something gluten-free? Normally they'll show me some selections from the buffet itself, but everybody else said, oh, go down there, go to this area. Well, once again, that's separating me from my party. The two restaurants did adjoin, but there was a long section of seating in between. And the piece in the corner was all there was gluten-free, and that made it a little bit uncomfortable because there was meat in the section marked in lactose intolerance, but there was no meat in the gluten-free section. I wasn't sure if those two sections were supposed to be related in any way. There was cheese, however, so then you could have cheese but not meat. And then after a while, I just decided to go and ask the people in the buffet area what I could and couldn't have, and just sort of force them to tell me. But the food turned out to be a bit of a disappointment. My wife, well, 3 out of 4 people would agree that the restaurant is the place to go. We always had better meals there. The 4th doesn't count. His opinion's crazy. The buffet, actually, with many things Cunard, we found the buffet to be visually very appealing. The ship itself was visually very appealing, but then often the substance wasn't quite there. As an example, they had a gluten-free dessert, and it was mango, like mousse or cream of some kind. So I did a little test. I grabbed it and I brought it to my wife, and I had her taste it. Mango is her favorite, and she could not identify what the flavor was. It was just sort of sweet, and it wasn't bad. It was just like a sweet mousse, but no discernible mango flavor whatsoever. Could have been raspberry. And we found that to be the case with much of the food aboard. Very beautifully presented, and I'll show you some video footage of how they presented the Halloween stuff. Really, really good. But the flavor just was very, very bland. The restaurant was pretty good. I'd say it was a hit 70% of the time. So my recommendation would be to go to the restaurant for your standard seating, and I would go there also for breakfast and lunch if you can do it, because we also had some lunches there and they were also very good. So before I left on the cruise, I watched many videos similar to mine, and I saw in 2 different places where the people mentioned that, oh, the cruise is a wonderful demographic. There are people from all over the world. It was my favorite part of the cruise, and they're all ages and so forth. And that was not my experience. I will show you video evidence right now to support my opinion that I polled the group, and we all agreed that we saw maybe 10 people in the demographic of 20s, demographic of 30s, and even demographic of 40s, and that was it. Everyone was old, and by old I mean even older than me, more gray hairs. And the ship was definitely, I would say, 80. I'd love to see the actual numbers on this, because I think it was probably 80% people the age of 65 and up, or maybe even 70 and up. I don't mean this is a bad thing. I don't have a problem with old people. I've got a lot of wrinkles and gray hair of my own, obviously. But it's important to note, if you are thinking this is going to be a spring break type of atmosphere, it is absolutely not the case. I think anybody exhibiting super drunken behavior, trying to climb from one balcony to another or something like that on the ship, would be thrown in a brig if such a thing exists on the cruise ship. It's just not done. In fact, one of the advantages of that I found was it kind of mixes in with the formal wear discussion or questions that I had earlier. So the answer to the formal wear I'll mix in here is that after 6 o'clock you have smart attire, and what I found was walking around the ship, people were just very nicely dressed anywhere you went. So it was just the thing you did. You just wore nicer clothes. And if you wanted to go to a certain restaurant or something, you'd have to check and see that it was marked. And here's a little video clip of one of the signs in front of the restaurants that tells you that this is actually formal attire. So if you're wearing merely smart attire, you will either be asked to leave or you will be accommodated in some way. I was told by somebody that they didn't have the right attire and they loaned them a jacket or something like that. I did only find one gentleman who basically refused and wore jeans and a t-shirt, and I only ever saw him. I saw him every day, only wearing that, and he was always in the buffet area where you can pretty much do that. Theoretically, he should have been in smart attire even there, I think, but it's just one of those things nobody really bothered him with. However, he did stand out, I think. So, bringing that back to the age demographic on the ship, I think what that really made for was an extremely civilized experience. I didn't have to worry about the noise being near different areas of the ship because there really wasn't a lot of noise. It's the kind of place you go and a person would say, oh no, please, you go first. Now this may be just typical British politeness. It could be the age. It could be the fact that people are relaxed on the ship. It could be just the atmosphere. Could be all those things, I don't really know, but it was very pleasant. I really appreciated that. But it also means that, yeah, it's not really a big party atmosphere, and I will show you now the Roaring Twenties party. So you can see here that the demographic is, like I said, a bit older, and it's not a huge hoopla going on there. I'm using the hoopla thing again. So I just wanted to check. There is a club called the G32, I think it was called, and that was theoretically the place that stayed open late, and it was, I think, where you'd go to find younger people. And I thought, this is where we're going to find the big, party beat, right? And it'd be dark, and people would be drinking, and there'd be all kinds of stuff going on there. And we opened the doors, and this is what we saw. As you can see as we walk through here, it's not significantly different than the Roaring Twenties party. Now, everybody's having a great time, and that's wonderful, but like I said, I just wanted to make the point that if you're younger and you're looking for a younger crowd, I don't think you're going to find it on this ship, unless miraculously the one data point I have is not representative of every cruise. So here's a shot that I think is all of the young people on the cruise. Coincidentally, I think it's all the people who dressed up for Halloween. It wasn't a big event. Another really cool thing about the ship was you didn't have to go through immigrations and customs when you got to Britain. You could do it right on the ship. Here's a little piece of video showing the line. It looks really long, but it moved really fast. I also wanted to mention the rooms, the quietness of the rooms. The doors are extremely soundproofed, and so the wall that separated our room from the stairwell was indeed a privacy wall. It made things quiet. I only ever heard one person coming up the stairs. It wasn't late at night. It wasn't very loud. It was very muffled. But honestly, he must have been screaming because it's very well soundproofed, to the point where when they had ship's announcements, like at noon, which I actually found quite interesting, I had to open the door even to hear them. So some of the announcements are ship-wide, like emergency announcements. You'll hear those even in the bathroom in your room. But the 12 o'clock announcements were ship-wide in the sense that they were broadcast on the ship, but not to the individual rooms. You could tune your television to it, though, in here, I believe, as well. So the rooms are very quiet. And so if you don't need to see out, I do highly recommend just getting pretty much any old room you want, because it's just going to be a little quiet sanctuary, with the exception, of course, of what I mentioned before about the stabilizers and the vibration, a little bit of noise, ambient noise that's always present in the room. Something I will mention regarding the bathrooms, all of the public bathrooms that I've been in on the ship, meaning the ones that are near in the public areas of the ship, have smelled of urine. One of them so strongly I pretty much left the bathroom. I'm really, really surprised. That really lets down the Cunard name. I can't believe that they're like that, but yeah, every single one of them has been really bad, so they're not really on top of their game there. So here's a shot of the laundry room. We went down there about three times at different times of the day, and every time we went down there was someone in there. Same thing goes for the gym. So what can we conclude from all of this? I lost about 4 pounds on the trip, but I think I could still lose a little more weight. Also, you really shouldn't keep cats as pets. You see this? This is too many cats. Go away. Stop purring. When it comes right down to it, I guess the real question is, would we do this again? Would we do this again?
It could.
Right,
but if
probably not. So that opinion is actually a bit of a reversal for me. When I first heard about the ship and I checked the pricing and saw that it could actually be comparable under the right circumstances to a flight, I thought, hey, why cram myself into a seat and die of a blood clot when I can take a 7-day luxury cruise instead? But
the answer is we actually enjoyed our time in Ireland after the cruise more than we did our time on the cruise. So given the option, I think we would both rather spend our time on our destination than on the cruise, right?
I totally agree.
So, with that said, I just want to say thank you for hanging in there so long. And I am going to leave you now with a very short musical interlude showing our favorite parts from the trip. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.